Okay, great. There's a couple people will be joining us in progress. Two of them are germane to the reason why this call is really an emergency call for me. Um, I have an unenviable task of producing the show as well as directing it for the time being. The director for the show, once he gets back from vacation, will be Terrence Coles, who's reached out to some of the students that will be participating as junior producers. They will not be production assistants. The ones especially on this call will be junior producers, either associate producers or associate directors. Okay. There's some new people on the call. At least there's one new person that has not been exposed to the project at hand. But the project that we're here on this call today is a project that has changed. It's changed its focus. The date has stayed the same, but the actual day parts have changed. February 28th is the date, Monday, February 28th, the last day of Black History Month. We are planning a production that will include a broadcast of everything that we plan from this point forward. This broadcast will go from a media hub. It'll either be at Brotherhood Crusade on Monday, February 28th, or the City Club in Los Angeles. Still trying to determine what will be the physical space for those people who will be involved with the physical production of it. But for right now, we're still making sure that there's going to be an online audience as well as an online component for the people who can't make the physical in studio production. So this will be an opportunity for the people on this call to participate in creating a run of show for February 28th. Some of you guys have been given a potential day part or a panel that will meet a time frame for delivering a 55-minute lightning round presentation. Those times have changed. Dana, who will be joining us, she's on a set right now. She's the person who is setting our new agenda as well as run of show. So it's gone from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So when I share screen, I'm going to put in the link, the new run of show, and all of the things that we will decide after we get off the call today, which will be described as a Google Doc. It'll be coming from Terrence Coles, who is going to be the director. But for right now, if you guys bear with me, I will be taking the reins and making sure that the Google Doc gets out to everybody so that we have an organic, evolving run of show and direction. The direction of the show will take on a opportunity for students that we've met along the way in the last 6 years. We've met some people who have been involved in productions that have been everything from online to physical productions, with post-production being the emphasis. These young people, Shoni, who's not on the call, we've also had Cameron's not on the call. These people will be helping to create a student-generated production that will allow them to, from soup to nuts, from A to Z, be assistants to Terrence. So assistant ADs or ADs and assistant associate producers. The idea is for these people to get IMBD credits because this production is something that Terrence is planning on presenting to the Roku network as something that can become programming. Not just at the February 28th event for Black History Month, but we are looking to create a series of content and programming around the idea of student-generated stories that become student content made for students by students with a real lens on production values that make them capable of having something commercial. The focus will be on interviewing people who we believe have presence and eminence in the digital media space. Some of them are on this call, and the focus is to have these people on the call become the interviewers, the presenters, as well as being able to have them share their stories of how they can see this content becoming something relevant to students who need to take away something beyond just kind of a talking head experience. So we have a few people on the call that are part of the actual run of show, and I want to have them introduce themselves as the panelists or the presenters so that we can hear a little bit from them about what they'd like to share on the February 28th date. It is the last day of Black History Month, but we also want to look at the news cycle. A lot of things can happen between now and the February 28th date, but with all the importance on them being able to have a focus on their delivery to young people trying to get into careers in digital media, as well as any careers that really lead to future growth opportunities. We want them to share their way ahead. So I'm going to start with the very first person that I asked to be on the call. Jeff Thompson, if you can introduce yourself and give a little bit of what you'd like to see as the outcome for your presentation on the 28th.
Well, the outcome of the presentation will be focused on, getting people interested, or these students interested in areas that they might not have considered, right? So that would be the outcome. I don't know what percentage that might be because I don't know the audience yet. If you look at what I'll be talking about, I'll be focused on the transition to digital, right, holistically, and how that impacts or gives opportunity to people of color in the ecosystem of television, film, and digital media. I'll be talking a little bit about and breaking that down, right? As a guy that came out of Disney and Condé Nast and has worked at a couple of startups that are, in the technology space. The backdrop is that, these kinds of curveballs usually either back people up or help them accelerate. And the goal is to help them accelerate by talking through what are the new advanced opportunities. And one of the examples I'll be using are some of the new content that's been created for places like Netflix and Roku and other places that are from people of color that would have never been picked up 20 years ago, 15 years ago even. And they've been picked up and are not only doing well, but that content's being sold. And also includes, since I left Disney, I've done 3 documentaries. One released last year, Scrum in October, would never have been picked up by a studio, but that's why I own it and distribute it. And there's opportunities to do that. So the reason I'm saying that is, so I'm focused on, the great opportunities, the changing digital environment, and, and holistically around, how people of color in particular can tap in and, from a background point of view.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Mentorship is an important theme for me in this. So I'd like to have you also think about mentorship as an operative word. So I'm going to ask you a question, Jeff. Who was the most important person in your life, in your evolution, as a mentor? And I'd like you to think about that person and tell a little short story about how you found that person, or how that person found you, and how they impacted you in your evolution, and they may still be involved in your life.
Well, what a nice curveball on a Friday, beautiful day in California. So yeah, let me think about that for a second. But, if I'm trying to save time, I'd say just briefly, look, I think that you have different mentors over different periods of your life and your career. There's different mentors in college than your first job, than your next job, and as you move to management, and so on and so forth. But I think that mentoring starts with the people that help guide you. So if I were to pick one mentor, it would be my grandfather, in fact, who was the first person to really talk to me about going to college. And I came from a military family that, in military didn't mean a major or general. Military meant you're a grunt going to Vietnam, so to speak. And And so I came from an environment where people didn't go to college, and we didn't have a lot of college. And my grandfather was, he was very successful as a mail letter carrier, so a mailman at the time. And that was like a big federal job that we kind of don't talk about now because it's not a big deal anymore. But he talked about the importance of me going beyond him. And he talked about me, the ability to get educated is different than when he was growing up. So, it may not be sexy, but my grandfather is that first mentor that really kind of stretched me beyond being a postal worker or a truck driver, and really thinking about, well, wait, what would law school mean? Or what is law school? Or I don't even know half these jobs that I've ever had. I wouldn't have known them in high school or even my first couple of years of college. So I think that the problem that we have, that reason why I have a challenge, and I would go with that kind of answer, is that the problem with underrepresented populations is that you don't have a lot of, you don't have a lot of doctors in your family. You don't have a lot of attorneys in your family. You don't have a lot of scientists in your family. What happens is you have a lot of custodians in your family, and you have a lot of people that, teachers in your family. You have a lot of people in your family, and those you typically go with what you already have been exposed to. And so I think that the key is to get mentors that stretch you and get you out of your own comfort zone and get you thinking about yourself differently. You ask, I'm going too long here, but, I've said this before and it's real. The number one reason for the number one predictor of someone becoming a doctor is having a parent who's a doctor, period. It doesn't matter about your academic strengths, doesn't matter about your gender. What matters is that you have somebody that's exposed you to it, and that you feel that it's something that, oh, that's interesting for me to pursue, and I can pursue it. I have a path to pursue it. And most people, so when if you look at that, if you're African-American or Latino or coming from many of these areas across urban areas all over the United States, what do you want to be? I want to be a hairstylist. What do you want to be? I want to be a rapper. Nothing wrong with any of these things, right? But the goal is you want to be what you're exposed to. And so we have huge gaps of, people don't know what a scientist is, a digital strategist, a data scientist, all these new high paid roles, and how to get excited about them. And so anyway, I'm long about this, but I think that that's at least the spirit that I'm thinking about. And it depends on, as we get further, what the audience is.
Right.
As we start seeing who our actual audience will be, I'll adjust accordingly.
Right. Great. And I'm glad that you mentioned audience, because we're still trying to focus on our core audience. We've, embraced a couple of organizations who have a large database of young people, some 14, some 18, up to 24. We have community colleges, we have universities. But I think the majority of the people we're focusing on are in the workforce space, that are either trying to enter workforce, looking for economic opportunities, looking to onboard themselves in processes to get them better prepared, so that they can submit themselves for qualification, whatever those qualifications are. I think that that's really our core audience. And how do we mentor to the processes of those things that get them into digital media, as well as tech? And so for another maybe 60 seconds, Jeff, can you tell us the importance of tech? Because you're now working at Oracle, but you're a creative. And how important is tech now in integration into digital media?
Well, the way I would look at it is it's a very good and difficult question, right? But if I simplify it, I'd say this. You could now use a university and teach online in a university leveraging the tool that we're using now, Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Imagine a pandemic 20 years ago when we were all on telephones, or we're trying to get a signal, outside of, our cell phone. So, technology and the integration of that technology into our daily lives is really driving a faster pace of knowledge, knowledge gathering. It's driving the need for faster decision-making. And therefore, it means that you have to use those tools to accelerate your thinking. And so, the example that I would use even to some of my students at USC is like, look, people didn't contemplate that, 20 years ago that everyone would have an iPhone in their pocket at any one time. that everyone would have a flashlight in their pocket. Everyone would have a banking device in their pocket. Everyone would have an encyclopedia in their pocket. By the way, I came out of television. Everyone would have a TV in their pocket and have their own programming, whatever they want on that TV in their pocket. My point is that the ability to gather knowledge, to grow fast, to make decisions fast has never been more apparent. The risk is, by the way, because there's always a risk, is that if you don't use these tools to adapt and to accelerate and to move your way into these areas, you will be left at the table because the trends are moving so fast. And so, you never want to be studying. I remember one of my friends from college she was investing in a payphone route with Verizon, and I was laughing at her. At the time we were friends, and it's laughing like, wait, you're gonna have. Remember, we laugh about it, but anybody that's over 40 years old remembers that like payphones were a big deal. And right toward the ends of payphones, when you stopped seeing them, they were starting to let Black people like get routes. Like they were like, the AT&T was saying, hey, you can invest in Detroit downtown and have a territory. And so, we have, just like that, a lot of people lost their shirts investing in things that were going away. And, and so you have to go where the market is going, not where it's been. Usually that's better jobs, better pay, better prestige, all the things that we want, both, to feed our families, but also intrinsically to feel like we're doing something wonderful. So, long-winded, but, that's sort of the vision and the spirit of sort of the thinking behind, why, I would be using the topics and where you go from there.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And I'm going to pivot to someone who has been at the intersection of creative and tech for quite a while. Anna Marie, can you share with us, in a perfect world, what would you like to share with a student audience of 14 to 24-year-olds who don't know what they don't know and aren't really sure where things are going, but just need some kind of anchor as to, kind of figure that they would listen and apply and take away something from our conversation about how to build skill sets for entry into this ever-changing career path that we're looking at in intersection?
I do what I would say what I say to my students now at two different schools. And that's to continue to learn how to learn. That's the only way, and be curious and keep learning, to look ahead, as Jeff was saying. It can't rely on what's behind, but it's kind of hard to do that. We don't know that we're in what we're in a way. The new becomes commonplace and mainstream. It's not so new anymore. And so where do we see that tide turning, and how to be continuously curious about it, learn new tools, don't feel afraid to try a new tool. We're all new to VR and AR and all the XRs and whatever's now. So take advantage of that if you're young, or older. So I try to encourage them to be open and keep learning. Yeah.
Okay. What about mentorship? How does that play a role in your thought process about how to onboard any newbies into learning how to learn, especially life skills outside of curriculum?
Well, mentors are immensely important, and learning how to identify one and kind of bond with one and make that relationship as part of that learning process. So I was pretty fortunate to have several good mentors along the way. And I was thinking about your question, I didn't have judges and lawyers or anyone in my family either. My father went to 10 years of night school to get a degree. And I witnessed that. And he would come home with these big books, and I'd try to read them when I was little. And he inspired me and said, woman, you could be president someday. And yet his cultural background didn't really allow for that. He saw me as going to college to go find somebody to marry and have children. So I did not do that, but though I did eventually get married, it was totally different than what his thought process might have been. Yet he did open my eyes to the idea that I could learn, that I could read fully, that I could tackle subjects that might have been outside of my realm and my ken. So for women in particular, that is often math and sciences.
Well,
Really,
there
really
we have,
important.
yeah, that, we've had two people talk about mentors and both of them have been family members.
Yeah, but mine were actually from school. My mentor in art school was half Chinese and half Puerto Rican, but was born in Hawaii and had a Hawaiian name. And he really opened my eyes to the world of people and possibilities that I didn't necessarily have. I had a hard, I'm kind of an anomaly. I don't see myself easily checking the box for being white when we're doing what our race is and what our ethnic is, because I didn't feel that way and I wasn't treated that way when I was young, but I'm clearly not African American or Latino. But there's a lot of gray areas in all. Every group has some kind of a caste system. And in fact, my university is the first to recognize the caste system, Indian caste system, as being a protected group. I'm actually pretty proud of that. So, that people don't know their own outside of their own little world sometimes, whether it's cultural, ethnic, racial, and the nuances that are there. So I would say that's part of that learning. Be open to the nuance, be open to finding people's real stories, what's really behind where they are. That's really important.
Well, thank you, Anna Marie. And again, we had been talking to you about how the California State Universities, the 23, connected to digital media and entertainment career pathways through the CSUEA.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with Haley this week
Mhm.
about them making sure this event on the 28th connects to their audience. And if you can you tell us some of the things that are the needs as you see them from the CSUs about things that they're maybe the students aren't currently getting or doing to stay as competitive as they need to be?
I don't know if I can speak for all the CSUs. I work at one CSU at Cal State Northridge, and I'm familiar and have been connected to people with the CSU Entertainment Alliance. That's what CSUEA is. I promote them to my students so that they know they have resources beyond our school as it is. So I think I struggle within my own school as well. If there's still academia is so behind in terms of equipment and thought. The description of my class, I've been trying to get them to change it for 5 to 6 years, and it's like we're not even in a print catalog anymore. Why can't this be changed? It still looks like it's something that engineers would take and not producers and directors and writers, but it's totally about creativity, history, theory, copyright, and it's like something about the management, the production management, and dissemination of electronic media systems. Boy, I think that's not one I would check off on my box unless I was forced to take it. But it's an interesting course, and a lot of students do. And they're mostly in emerging media, and that's just becoming an option at CSUN. I'm teaching now at University of Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska, the middle of the country, and there's a Carson Center for Emerging Media. So some people there had the foresight to set this up because they got a big bounty from Johnny Carson, who's from Nebraska. So it's the Johnny Carson Center for Emerging Media Arts. My father would probably be proud of me for that. He watched Carson all the time. And these students, it's all being made up as it goes. A friend of mine, a colleague who was running the X Media Lab in Melbourne, Australia, and then had versions of it in Beijing and Mumbai and Germany and a couple of different places. She was hired as the founding director of that. So that's how I landed there. But she's developing that program. And I think they probably will want to address some diversity in that system too. I'm very used to an incredibly diverse student population at CSUN. I would say I'm spoiled by that. And I'm dealing with now, wow, I'm trying to figure out what these students are about because it's a very, they're two very white classes. There's a few people there and I can maybe tell by surname or who they are. And hopefully all my students have an essay that they have to write about their personal experience to media and technology. When did the light bulb go off? When did they realize they had this interfaces, membrane between themselves and the world. That's digital media. Now, when does the fish realize it's in water? How do we look back and see that outside shape and surface of what we're in? And therefore be able to understand it and affect change in it, look towards the future, but also kind of fix things, maybe right the things aren't working as well, right while we're there in it. I hope that makes sense. I don't know.
Well, it does. And this is being recorded for Terrence, for Dana, Shoni, and Cameron, who aren't on the call. They're all, doing things that are important for the production, and this recording is going to be key for them.
Yeah, Terrence was incredibly important during the AFI Enhanced TV workshop, which became the Digital Media Lab, and which is how I run most of my class as well. Is study with the masters and learn by doing. And that's, maybe don't find one single mentor. It's really a gift if you can, but if not, cultivate a few and understand where they are and study with them as much as they can let you have the ability to, and then just do it. Just learn by doing, make mistakes and learn from the mistakes. Just don't hurt anybody while you're making mistakes if you can.
Okay, great. Okay, and I'm going to try to speed through. Dee Stevens, can you tell us, in a perfect world, what would you like to present to students? How could they learn from your evolution? And again, you cover many spaces, videography, photography, maybe some other things that you could share with us about projects, and how can you help students understand how to be relevant as assistants to your projects. So if you can share a little bit about, how you can share the processes for students to get involved with you as a creative. Dee, you have to unmute. Dee, you have to unmute. Dee?
Hello?
Yes, Dee. Okay. Did you hear me? Do you need me to repeat
No,
that?
I did. My internet over here is very unstable, so I'm missing a lot of what you're saying. So,
Okay. Okay. So I was asking you, Dee, can you share a little bit about, your travel from, you were a student at one point at UCLA and have evolved into this person who now wants to give back. Can you share with us how and what archetype of a person could be an assistant working for you on these projects, these powerful projects you're working on? What kind of person?
as you know, I'm a key art photographer and a photojournalist, but I grew up in Compton, so I'm very aligned with predicaments of people of color. For key art.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I actually asked Dee to come on. Dee is a award-winning photographer. He's won, I think, a Pulitzer Prize and a key art photography. Dee, are you still with?
Yeah, I'm with you, but it was not a Pulitzer Prize. It was key art.
Well, yeah, I'm ad-libbing, so man, please just give us what you can before you freeze up on us, man. Please, you've done so much.
Okay. I've done some iconic movies, everything from Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, What's Love Got to Do with It. So I've been being in the film industry and a photojournalist. I've been like 7 years at Newsweek based in London, and then about another 4 or 5 years in Time Magazine in Los Angeles Bureau. So I've covered all kind of major stories. I've looked at the Olympics several times. I went, the World Cup in South Africa when it opened up. Basically, you talk about mentorship. We use people all the time in key art, in photography, unit photography. There was a large article in Los Angeles Times about unit photographers, and I noticed that they use it as a minimum person of color. And in reality, is like we have so limited number of people of color shooting key art or unit photography. Like you're talking about maybe 17 in the last 30 years who've been working on major movies. Maybe as of now, maybe 4 out of in the union. So those kind of things, getting people introduced to working on movies and how to sell a movie. Camera Guild tries to open up, I work with the Camera Guild and opening up as a mentorship in that. And we can do the same kind of thing with anybody we find.
Wow. Okay, and you know, we were talking with Terrence about the projects that you're currently working on right now. If you can share with us some of those projects that could allow us to match up some of the people, you know, in our database who could be assistants. And it could be people who are currently in a subsidized program or folks who are skilled enough to just earn their way and gain trust as valued productions. So can you talk about some of those projects, these exciting projects you mentioned to us? Oh, okay. Well, Dee, we're definitely going to have to make sure you're there physically on the 28th, because we can't, you know, we can't rely on spotty bandwidth to be able to pull off the production we want to pull off. So we're definitely going to be looking at either the City Club or Brotherhood Crusade as the physical hub for people who can make it on February 28th. I'm going to go to Daniel Walker. And what happened? He's lost us. Okay, so we lost Daniel Walker. I'm going to go to a couple of the young folks here. Jaslyn, if you can introduce yourself and some of the things that you'd like to achieve through mentorship or being a mentee, and how do you envision yourself in the next couple of years working in the digital media career pathways of your choice?
Hi, so I'm currently a student attending Cal State Long Beach. This is my last semester. I'm studying studio arts. I think one of the biggest things I want to achieve through a mentorship and mentee program is just learn ways I can better support my local communities digitally. I feel like in the next couple of years, I can see myself, you know, providing art education workshops through platforms like Zoom, just hosting events where people can come and be exposed to art education. And just, I don't, when I grew up, I was in an area where I was told that, you know, the only way to really get out is to become a doctor or a lawyer. And being exposed to art education is one of the things that taught me that the arts aren't limited and there's many possibilities. And I feel like that's a lesson I would love to be able to extend to others.
Okay, great. And Jaslyn, can you tell me about the program you were referred from, and how that's helped to, you know, accelerate your interest in digital media and careers and the associated pathways that we're talking about?
Yeah, so I was referred over from Inner City Arts. It's a campus here in Los Angeles where middle high school students and elementary students are, you know, involved in art education.
Great.
And through that program, I became part of an internship program called Work of Art, where we were doing a lot of internships and externships and just kind of exploring, you know, the creative industry of LA. So that involves like doing digital art, digital illustration. We toured places such as Nickelodeon and Disney.
Great. And where do you see yourself maybe in the next 2 years?
And the next 2 years, that's a lot of questions. I feel like I'm considering the idea of returning to school to get a teaching credential.
Wow, a teaching credential. Okay. Well, we've got quite a few instructors in our network, so we'd love to meet you. I have you meet them, and again, mentorship is really the operative word here, so that we can figure out how to give you some real, not real models, but some, you know, some role models, but real models of what it is that you can cherry pick from their struggle to success, or from the things that they've, you know, enjoyed or enjoy about education. And a person that I definitely lean on for that conversion from education to workforce, especially the digital media, Greg Johnson from the Los Angeles County Arts Education Collective. Greg, I saw in the chat box you won't be available for us on the 28th, but if you can you explain to us what are some of the strengths and the weaknesses of some of the programs and programming that have connected the education to workforce community? How can we help to bolster what's been, especially the weaknesses?
Thank you so much, Kevin, and it's great to be on this call with everyone, and wonderful information that I'm gathering today, and I resonate with so much of what's been said and really appreciate the conversation. There has been a lot of nothing in terms of helping students, and particularly students from disadvantaged backgrounds and neighborhoods that are traditionally unserved, to get into the media or to get into jobs in general. And so there has been a concerted effort. So what's good is that, for example, the Department of Arts and Culture started something called Pathways to the Creative Workforce, because we know that in California every year the creative industries is a $3 billion industry, and there are a lot of jobs related to creative arts education, but also the production of art, and that includes, of course, the film industry in Los Angeles. So now, for several years, we've been focusing on that. We now have a full-time staff person named Mia Johnson, who's fantastic. We have funding that's coming from the American Rescue Plan and other sources that will allow us to do a media-focused initiative over the next couple of years, just for the purposes that you outlined, of having more opportunities for more youth to discover ways to connect with all kinds of technology, all kinds of media, and different kinds of ways in which they can envision themselves being in that very, very broad set of employment and career opportunities. So that's the good part, is that there are now opportunities. People are realizing that there's ways to do this, and putting money behind it, hiring behind it. But there's so much that can't be said for how the traditional means of making this happen have just not produced any very, very many results in my mind. And now that we have a number of different kinds of things in place, like Care First community investment, and going toward care instead of punishment for so many different kinds of the individuals that have been impacted by the government. And I'm in government. I'm in county government, and that means that I'm working to bring arts into probation facilities. So I'm working with probation people. I'm working with law enforcement people. But I have 2 degrees in music, and I've been a performer my entire life, and I've been an arts education teaching artist my entire life. So it means that the arts can also be applied for social justice, and that's, I think, the most important way that they can be applied, because we're not able many times to see beyond what I call the celebrity culture of arts, which is that the people who are kind of like the celebrity culture of the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball, where there's a fraction of people that are making it and are famous, and we focus attention on that to the exclusion of all of the other kinds of ways in which sports manifest, or how that could be possible for someone to make that a part of their life. However, it's, I think, really chronic in the arts. But it's a fact that there are so many ways that people can be employed in the arts, and so many ways that the arts are beneficial, not the least of which is social change. Murals in the neighborhood, giving people the ability to write poetry, to write lyrics. I mean, you only have to look at hip-hop culture, rap music, and what has been produced there. I mean, those lyrics about the malaise of inner city life, that was the only way that message really was promulgated. So I'm getting worked up about this, but that's kind of my soapbox, and I'm very passionate about it because the arts saved my life. And now my life is dedicated to working with students who are in the court schools, who are behind the wall, and to others who are in the mass incarceration web that this society has created in order to allow people to liberate out of that, to liberate their mind out of it, and to liberate their body back into an employment stance for the purposes of doing that, each one teach one, and making that possible. That's why I work with Tobias Tubbs. That's why we started a 501c3 in Leimert Park called Future Traditions that is specifically related to people coming out from behind the wall to be able to do urban gardening and arts. So that's where I put my energy, and that's what I'm about. And I love the idea that we're working with youth and doing mentoring, and I could probably also, add some points to that, but I'm going to stop there because I know we're short on time.
Well, yeah, and I definitely want to make sure that for all the future conversations we have with Leo from Brotherhood Crusade, he needs to hear your passion and couple what he can with what it is you're currently doing. So we'll make that happen. There's a couple other people left. I'm going to ask Makita if you can. Makita, can you give us a shared vision based on what you've heard and what maybe you learned a little bit about, our initiatives? Can you give a shared vision for success in getting some momentum for at least a project beyond February 28th to create some successful tracks?
Yeah, definitely. I think that we need to continue to connect with those agencies, the providers that the city works with, like the Brotherhood Crusade, like the Watts Labor Action Community Group, like Yo Watts and Watts Community, Boyle Heights Tech Center. We need to continue to plug those young people into these kinds of opportunities. So I think going forward, if we are able to create a pipeline to where young people can be involved beyond just that February 28th activity, that would be the best route. Because as I mentioned before, what we want to do is impact their lives financially, but then also spiritually, mentally, put them into a better place so that they're able to thrive in the community, so that they see beyond, like Jeffrey said, the exposure is so important. And so these, I know Shane was on before with blockchain. There's so many things that are happening that these communities are so unaware of. They have no idea. And so our charge in the city is to connect the young people to these opportunities, to create pathways for them so that they can succeed and be able to monetize at some point the work that they're doing here, but also support their communities and lift each other up and have them acknowledge and know that these are possibilities that they can have. They don't have to go the route that they've seen others go in the past, right? There's opportunity, there's possibility for them. So I think what we need to do, you and I, Kevin, and a collective, right, with everyone, is to discuss further how we can put the young people in a situation to where they can access the different things that you have going in your network. How they can at some point, as Anna Maria mentioned, translate that into formal education if they want to, right? If not, also there's the other routes, right, where they can see themselves being a professional person and having a living wage job. But that's the main focus of our department. And that's what our general manager wants to see for me and my team in the youth section. How do we create pathways for young people so that they can have a successful life in the future? This is a high interest area, sector: technology, media, videography, music. This is what the young people love. This is what they're interested in. How do we get them to understand what it takes to be prominent in that space, right? We see so many of them, the TikTok stars and this person, that person, making it, but what are they doing for their community? And I know that the young people that we work with really have a heart for their community, and this will be beneficial to them. And so just continuing to plug into the agencies that are committed to providing the exposure to the young people is what we need to do to further this work.
Right. And Makita, I have a young man that's on the Zoom. He can't speak because he's at work right now, but he's referred to me by a counselor at Cal State Northridge. His name is Jamel Clark. And you may be speaking directly to him. He's 22, graduating from Cal State Northridge. And I believe his interest is in animation, but he's in the film and TV. Well, there he goes. He just left us. But he is a person who could benefit from, oh, there he is again. he could benefit from some subsidies. Is there anything that would disqualify him because he's in a university or a community college from participating
No.
in your program?
No, absolutely not. So we are 14 through 24, and we are in school, out of school. So that the fact that he may have maybe obtaining a degree, it's fine as long as he isn't currently connected to his career pathway. There's always ways that our providers can support him to get him onto the right path. So he wouldn't be disqualified. The subsidy obviously is tied to things like City of LA resident, also low economic, right? So depending upon his family structure, he may or may not qualify there, but we also do have private funds that we could tap into if not tied to the city subsidies.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Because I think in my discussions with some of the community college counselors and faculty, as well as the California State Universities, and this maybe is a question, I think obviously the qualifications for, submitting is economic, socioeconomic status, right? So, some of the people may be going to USC and UCLA, they may not qualify, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they're on scholarship, and there's still people, I think, who need to know that the opportunity to submit themselves is available. And we'd like to make sure that they, through the Jeff Thompsons and the Anna Maries, can, tell their students who are potentially, right on the margins of needing support, either government or private, to get through. So we have a tremendous need for them to just get the facts. So that
So they would connect with either any one of our agencies. Like I mentioned, there's Yo Watts, there's WLCAC, there's Brotherhood Crusade, Inner City Arts is now one of them. We have them throughout the city of Los Angeles and the Valley. We have El Proyecto del Barrio, Goodwill. They're the ones that will be able to sift through the information provided by the young person to see whether they qualify or not. So we would not be the ones to determine. Those agencies would. And like I said, if they're not eligible for the local government subsidy, then a lot of these agencies like Brotherhood Crusade and others have funding set aside, private dollars that may have looser requirements. And so the young person, if they're in need, they're able to help them regardless of where they are in terms of what their family income looks like.
Fantastic. Okay. And to take us home, Shane, Shane is a new friend, but who's working in blockchain, smart contracts, but also in economic development. Shane, any parting words with respect to how you plan on, helping us understand not only financial literacy, but just, again, breaking the wealth gap that we know people, not just of color, but just who are young people are having with trying to survive in these really crazy times. Anything you can share with us will be helpful, because this is an economic football we're dealing with right now.
Absolutely. And I guess all I would say is my feedback is just really in alignment with everything everybody has already said, and just maybe from a different perspective or vantage point. But, I think, some of the communication and some of what I would like to see come out of a meeting like this and ongoing basis would be that the young people who are engaged can recognize it from a standpoint of strategy, recognizing that everything in life, everything that they're putting their efforts and their attention towards in life is really based on a strategy. And being strategy centric, as there's a lot of definitions for strategy, but for me, simply put, it's just knowing where you are and where you want to go and having a plan of how to get there, and recognizing that strategy is always going to be a robust, ongoing basis. You may have to change your approach multiple times, have a dynamic of measuring and accountability, and just really having that structure. And someone said, learn how to learn and continue doing that. Forgive me, I didn't write down the name of who said that, but thank you, because that's kind of along the lines of what I'm thinking in terms of strategy. And when I think of strategy, there's 3 points that I recommend. It's starting with being hungry, and then practicing stretching, and then stair-stepping your way up levels, and being hungry, especially for this demographic, of youth is almost built in, and that's one of the advantages, for that, is telling them, hey, you already have that. Don't lose that. Lean in on that. Be hungry. Be hungry to learn. Be hungry to grow. And the more hunger that stir up, then that leads you into the next point, which is practicing stretching. Whether it's your physical fitness, you're working out, do a little extra at the end. Whether it's what you're learning, read another paragraph, or just whatever it is, always practice stretching. And then from there, that allows you to do the third thing, which is to step up levels, levels of attainment. And that also applies to mentorship as well. Practice stretching. You're going to learn something from one mentor. That's going to open you up because you're hungry and you're stretching, and you're going to see that there's a need of something else that you want to learn. And there comes another mentor who's going to satisfy that need of modeling for you to emulate. And so why do I say this? What's the purpose of encouraging people to think like this and act like this? Well, because recognizing that this whole process of life is us simply finding ourselves, right? We're finding ourselves, and part of us finding ourselves is seeing it in other people and then visualizing our future, right? And then taking that vision, empowering ourselves through the proper actions and building and growing into that, what we see. So I say that to say this in summation, okay? Life is basically a game of chess, okay? And you have to learn how to play the game. And I mean that not just figuratively, I mean it literally. Learn how to play the game of life, and learn how to play the game of chess, okay? And I've been working closely. I'm here in the Inland Empire, and some of our associates and people who we work with are out of the ICPA, which is the Inland Conservatory for Performing Arts. So it's a great performing arts school, and they're doing a really great job with everything that they're doing. It's in alignment with a lot of stuff that we're talking about here, but I mentioned it because they got a really great chess program and a chess outreach, that they're working on. And I think it bodes well with what I'm saying about strategy. So
Wow.
I thank you guys all.
Thank you, Shane. And Anna Marie had one thing that she wanted to say, and we'll take it out from there, Anna Marie.
Well, Shane almost did my lecture from last Thursday, but better.
Oh.
So it's, that kind of the strategy and seeing ahead and learning the self. So in my story lab class, where basically they're building characters and learning how to write. And, it's kind of hard to don't really teach somebody to write. They have to write. They have to do it in some ways. So the reason I raised my hand before was when we were talking about, the underserved in particular. And I wanted to just point out, I don't have a real lot of time, as Kevin knows, especially with the new courses, I'm totally crunched. But an area that I'd like to see addressed here is foster kids. They're the ones, when we're talking about mentors, we're talking about the ones who fall through the cracks. They reach a certain age. If they aren't already on a college track, community college, there's like a big black hole out there, a void. And they can easily, just slip through. And I think this is a program, and the lively arts, this medium, doing things for their community, getting involved, having value, feeling a sense of self and value, that's like many gifts to
And Anna Marie, if I could just let you know too, I'm a product of foster care.
really.
As a matter of fact, yeah. So I
Wow.
kind of share some of those same, desires to take systems that are built and developed and deliver them through, that demographic,
Wonderful.
as well as everybody else. Everybody needs, a solution, but
course.
when it hits home, you want to go there first. So
Yeah, I just think I'm aware of that age ago. I did a piece of ages ago with Huell Hauser, of all people, in on the foster care system, and he was always a magnet. No matter where you went, people just loved Huell. And then my son in high school did an internship as a high school student with the child services. I forget the actual agency, but they were out on the Wilshire Avenue, and we all became, even as a family, aware. And I think that's the things we need to have each other's backs. That's the important thing. Invite people in to help support, whether it's kids helping other kids, families helping other families. Melissa Nicola is a restaurateur and a great friend of mine, colleague, and she started CAKE, Culinary Arts Kids Eat. It's a strange acronym, but she was working with Santee High School, and she had this vision. I remember sitting with her around the Friendship Fountain in Los Feliz, and she really wanted to do something other than make money through restaurants, and she wanted to do something about food deserts and about obesity and about problems. So she started a culinary arts magnet there, working with the teacher. She's been teaching herself without getting paid, but these kids were making menus. They were making food. They had a garden. Makeda, you made me think of them too, because Melissa introduced some sports and yoga, some spiritual, like making the whole person. That's something that every group needs. And right now, with a beginning like this, there's an opportunity to invite that in and find the synergy. Because even whether you're doing yoga or sports or something, you need to communicate. And that's what this is about.
Well, guys, I thank you for the time. I'm sorry we went a little over, but again, I'm going to share the recording. We've got at least 5 young people. I think we'll be producing this project. It will be literally a student-generated news outcome, I believe, a news product. And we're looking forward to making sure that they can, make it everything it can be. So we'll share a Google document. It'll come from Terrence Coles. And again, I will just be sitting there waiting to support it in any way I can. And especially Makeda, we have a job description that will allow us, if there are students who want to participate in helping us with production assistance. We have some data entry for the website that we're building for the 28th. We'll pass that along. But anybody else that can think of anything on the Google document, please add on to it. And we look forward to a really good experience for everybody. Again, thank you for everything you guys have done today, and look for the Google Doc.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Have a great weekend.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.